I completed high school at the age of 17, went to university, started my degree 10 years ago, and 3 years later finished it, a Bachelor of Arts in Music Industry. I took the traditional route. And a question I see a lot of the time in the music industry is audio school, is a degree in the music industry, is going to tertiary education or a more traditional route worth it? So today I'm going to give you my honest recollections of my expectations going in, the pros, the cons, and what I did after the fact in order to take myself to where I was then to now. And now I have a career. I don't credit it to any one thing, I credit it to a combination of things, but I'm very lucky to be in the position I am, and I want to share with you one of the experiences which a lot of people ask about. What were my expectations going in? So going to high school, finishing high school, everybody tells you got to go to university, you got to go to college, you got to get that piece of paper and get a job. And that's what my expectations were going in. I was going to go to university, get a $17,000 piece of paper, because that's what it cost at the time. $17,000 piece of paper for 3 years of my life to get this piece of paper which could get me work. Remember, when I started, I was 17 years old. I didn't have much life experience. I didn't really understand the industry that well. And boy, that isn't the truth when it comes to the music industry. People don't look for your piece of paper. They don't look for your degree or your qualification that you read a bunch of books and did a whole bunch of text and assignments. They look for the real hard yakka. And that's one reality of the industry. I want to preface this with that there are pros to actually going to university or college and learning, but one of them isn't the piece of paper. People look for real life experience. People have gotten their hands dirty, put themselves out there, and sometimes that can be really hard and very, very intimidating to do, but that's what's going to get your foot in the door. Now we've got that overdone with. Let's look at some of the pros of actually having gone to uni. Some of the pros I can say were worth that $17,000. The first is the people you meet, okay? Being in and amongst like-minded and driven individuals in the music industry saw me spend 3 years of nights going out, working on assignments together, connecting, and you build up a rapport with these people. And some of these people have went on to have very successful, fruitful careers in the music industry as sponsored artists, musicians, A&Rs at major labels, people who do publishing and publishing rights management. They're in all facets and all parts of the music industry, and having spent 3 years building up a good rapport with them, learning and understanding them really has helped me in my future career, because a lot of them I've had to call on for help, or they've had to call on me for help. And that connection, that bond that you have going through a course for 3 years really helps solidify that. And I think that's one really important thing. Whilst you might be learning some things that you might not want to learn, you're going to be around people who you want to be around, and that's one pro of going to university or college for it. The second pro is the tutors or the lecturers. Now, whilst you're still in a classroom setting, it's a different sort of classroom setting which you don't get on YouTube. There's a lot of great information on YouTube, and pretty much anything you learn in university you'll be able to learn on the internet for free somewhere or somehow. But the difference is the dynamic learning experience you get with tutors. See, if you don't understand something that's particular to what you're experiencing, you can ask questions, you can get a dynamic response, you can get something explained more in depth for you and explore different options with your tutors, with your lecturers, which I think it was a real good aspect for a lot of the audio related classes I took in university. I really wanted to delve deeper than just the surface level, and it really allowed me to sort of explore that with some of the tutors and lecturers at the university. The third pro is the vocational experience you need to do to complete a bachelor degree. It requires you to do 120 hours of an internship, and for me, I didn't want to spend 120 hours doing something I wouldn't like. So it was a good kick up the bum, a good motivator to go find a really good internship position, and I did. And I was so fortunate I did, but I also credit that to the motivation behind my own motivation to, make a full list of every single studio engineer and producer in all of Melbourne, figure out the ones which I wanted to work with or had the opportunity to, and I had a really good hustle game at the time. And at the end of it, the final internship position I ended up taking up was a real testament and a real footing to starting off my career as a mastering engineer. So I'm really exceptionally grateful for that. Let's look at the cons. The first one is the amount of time needed you to dedicate to classes and classwork in opposition to actually doing real life work and being out in the field, as well as 3 years of your life just dedicated to learning this craft. And that can be good in some respects, but it can be limiting in others. If you're occupied all the time with classwork and lectures and tutors, you're going to have a limited amount of time to actually grow your career outside of that. So it's for people who are very focused learners who can sit there, go through lots of material, still at their entry level like I was at the time, and build up foundations. The second con is cost. For the amount you spend doing a degree, or the amount of debt you might build up if you're needing finance, is it worth the piece of paper? The piece of paper isn't worth it. Is it worth the experience? Can you get those experiences elsewhere? Can you get those lessons? Can you get those life experiences elsewhere without the degree? And I think to a certain extent, or to a majority extent, a lot of what we do in the classroom or had done in the classroom at university level could be done and replicated outside of that room without the big bucks behind it. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge. The only thing I would say, and this is sort of a catch-22, is the structured learning works for some people. Having that curriculum already developed there for you, having those classes accessible to some people is good, because not everybody's a self-autonomous learner where they can just go out into the internet, find information and learn in a structured manner. A lot of people need that structure. So it's sort of a catch-22 when it comes to the amount of cost you're spending there as opposed to getting the information freely on the internet. The third con is the curriculum. You don't have much of a say over what you want to learn other than elective classes, and even then it's limited. There are some classes which are foundational to your course which you're not going to enjoy, and that can be a little bit difficult. For me, I'm a creative mind. I like to explore what I'm interested in or what my brain's sort of gravitating me towards. So one of the classes which was a real sort of jarring point for me was that we had to take philosophy classes as part of a music industry course. That to me was a little bit weird. I didn't connect with the class, and it did feel like a big waste of time in that sense. So that would be one of the cons that I really experienced, and I can, identify on a very specific level. Was it worth it? Well, for the fact that I built up a lot of connections and rapport with some people who I call my close friends today, I think it was really good. It was really worth it. For the paper that the degree was written on, I'm not so sure. But that said, I feel like for me, being a 17-year-old, having gone into that course, I was 17 at the time, I turned 18 in March, being that young going into a structured environment was something I needed. So in that sense, I think it was very much worth it. Without that structure, without that environment to learn in, I don't think the 17-year-old me would have accelerated at the rate I did. See, I really thrived under pressure, under expectation. So having that course there to drive me to do well really helped me focus, really helped me connect with all the people around me and what I was learning. After I finished the course, I spent a few years at the start, doing my freelance thing, building up my studio, and a lot of things didn't really go well for me. And the reason being is because I had spent so much time in the classroom. Yes, I'd done my internship experience, but that was at a much more bigger and accomplished studio than the one I was starting out at. So I didn't really have a real life experience of dealing with smaller artists, smaller clients. In that sense, I don't think it really set me up for a great career, but it was my own ability to observe problems and see that I needed to fix things that did help me build my career. And that came through self-autonomous learning. So the ability to go out, seek information which I needed for my own problems. And that came in the form of online masterclasses and online material for both information relevant to the music industry and outside of the music industry. So what did self-autonomous learning look like for me? Well, I didn't really have a structure at the start. Now I have a little bit more of a structure because I like learning, I like expanding my knowledge. But at the start, it was as simple as this. I observe a problem, I try and find the solution. One of the early problems that I had was getting more clients in. So find a solution, look at some marketing people, look at Gary Vaynerchuk, and this is 5-6 years ago. This is a long time ago I was looking at it, and it helped me. And next problem, okay, bookkeeping. How do I manage my books? Not managing my books properly, figure out how to manage my finances, look for online resources for finance. didn't, I think one major one was value. The value I provided, how to price myself. That was really difficult. You know, I found a really good resource which has helped me in many ways, which is the Future. And again, none of these resources are sponsored. It's just I've had a good experience using them. In summary, we can see how university, especially for me as a young person, 17 years old going in, helped me, gave me the structure I needed in order to develop my knowledge, make connections with people, and move myself forward. But whether it was worth it, for me, I'm going to say for me, actually, you know what? I'm going to say for me, it was very much worth it. But is it worth it for you? Well, I hope you can take some of the lessons from my experiences, both the pros, the cons, where I was in my life, if it matches up a little bit to where you are, and see, you know, is this appropriate for me? Is this appropriate for where I am? And I think, just as trying to pretend to be an outside observer to what's happened with me, is that if you're somebody who needs structure, who is a little bit younger, who hasn't had their feet wet yet, it can be a good thing. It can be a good motivator. For yourself, it's important to assess where you are now. What are your skill sets? What are your resources? What are your network? You know, where are you trying to go? And where are you starting from? And from there, I think you can build up a bit of a picture of whether or not, you know, a degree in audio or the music industry or the music business is worth it for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, click the like button, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, take care.